production patterns will not be enough. It would make an immensely challenging task more manageable. However, without a change in U.S. consumption habits, stabilizing population will not have the desired effect of moving the country towards a sustainable economy. So, in other words, if you don't allow Big Brother to regulate and control every part of your life, then you are a traitor to the planet. The fundamental right to own property is key. In the book, Sustainable America, it explains how rural areas can be depopulated with residents flocking to cities. Higher gas prices, condemnation of older roads, and new tolls will convince many that living in a rural area is no longer financially possible. Where needed, eminent domain proceedings will lead to uprooting others. Sustainable America approvingly points to a time when high gas prices affected Americans. They point to this part back in the 70s, and many of you may remember this. The American experience with energy during the 70s and early 80s is often offered as evidence of the way price hikes reduce per capita use and promote efficiency in technology. So to them, high gas prices is a good thing, so that you don't drive so much. Along with that bad memory for many Americans, the UN's Global Biodiversity Assessment makes no attempt to hide its totally negative view regarding private ownership of property. It says property rights are not absolute and unchanging, but rather a complex, dynamic, and shifting relationship between two or more parties over space and time. Contrast this UN-published view with the traditional view of those whose thinking created our nation. It is well known that the writings of political philosopher John Locke influenced America's founders, and he stated, "The great and chief end, therefore, of men's uniting into commonwealth and putting themselves under government is the preservation of their property." And George Washington said very succinctly, private property and freedom are inseparable. If you start messing with private property, you will be messing with freedoms. And John Adams, who followed Washington as the president. The moment the idea that it is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the law of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, anarchy and tyranny commence. Property is surely a right of mankind as really as liberty. They could always say it so well. Now, the offshoots of Agenda 21 and the many companion conventions and agencies emanating from the UN constitute a completely opposite attitude regarding the fundamental right to own and keep property. As far back as 1976, a United Nations Conference on Human Settlement stated in its report of habitat that land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset controlled by individuals and subject to the pressures and inefficiencies of the market. We don't want the free market. Private land ownership may become a major obstacle in the planning and implementation of development schemes. You're right, it is a major obstacle. Just like Karl Marx said in the Communist Manifesto in 1848, "In one word, you reproach us with intending to do away with your property. Precisely so. That is just what we intend. The middle class owner of property must indeed be swept out of the way and made impossible." Sounds a lot like Marxism, doesn't it? Agenda 21. So, aiming for world government under communistic control, Marx and Engels knew that ownership and control of private property stood in their way. That the United Nations has always been led by Marx and socialists is hardly surprising. And it is obvious that Agenda 21 advocates what Marx and Engels recommended for all communists and socialists, even if the 1992 UN document and its various spin-offs failed to admit it. It has the same result. One of the planks of the Communist Manifesto of a strong communist state is abolition of private property. So, what to do? And this is the solution part of the problem. So I've listed out several things of what you can do. First of all, determine whether your city is a member of ICLEI. I've already gone through some of the list of that for Tennessee. And you have to keep an eye on that to see what changes are made by going to the ICLEI.org website. And then helping your locally elected officials to understand the goals of Agenda 21. And call for quitting any that have been started. Urge refusal to initiate any. Number 3, spread awareness about Agenda 21 through your community. Make the matter an issue in any local or regional election. One of the things about how they reach down to the local level is they form these regional councils. And down in Chattanooga, it's called the Chattanooga Regional Council. And it is a conglomeration of several counties from Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee together in what they call a regional council. And the federal agencies like EPA and HUD, they come in and they give consultation on sustainable development to these regional councils. So that now you have unelected bureaucrats. These aren't all your county commissioners. A lot of these are just appointed people. So this is what is known as a Soviet. That's the definition of a Soviet. It's a conglomeration, a group of unelected people that are controlling the people that they're over. And so that's what is forming in like the CRC, Chattanooga Regional Council. Atlanta has one called the Atlanta Regional Council. It covers all of the metro Atlanta area. Number 4, distribute copies of the booklet that we have and the Agenda 21 pamphlets, if we have any left back there. You can also go to our website and download something that's free if your particular town needs to get out of ICLEI, if it's a member of ICLEI. We have something called the Agenda 21 Rollback Guide. It's a free download. It's about 12 pages, and it has 10 steps in it on how to organize to fight Agenda 21 or to fight the ICLEI at the local level, how to conduct yourselves at town council meetings, and what kind of questions to ask, how to organize. So it's very helpful. It's a free download. Agenda 21 Rollback Guide. People around Knoxville, that would be good to do. And number 5, arrange speaking engagements for knowledgeable opponents. I understand last week Don Casey from Alabama was speaking over in Oak Ridge, and I think PK was there as well. And my friend Jake Robinson came in and spoke instead of Catherine, I forgot her last name, from the American Policy Center. She's the vice president of Tom DeWeese's organization, and she couldn't make it, but Jake Robinson from Murfreesboro spoke. So there are other speakers. Tom DeWeese, the head of the American Policy Center, was just in Atlanta, and we had nearly 400 people there. He's on the Speakers Bureau for the John Birch Society, so he gives us a reduced speaker fee rate, and we were able to get him in there in the Atlanta area. And I worked with some of the Tea Party groups in North Georgia, and it was very successful. Tom DeWeese spoke, and then Don Casey spoke, and then a couple other folks from the North Georgia area gave some specifics as well. Number 6, write letters to the editor of local newspapers and talk about the issue with friends, neighbors, and co-workers. Number 7, don't expect the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, especially at the national level, to aid your efforts. Leaders of both are complicit in bringing this UN scheme to our nation. George H.W. Bush signed the Agenda 21 agreement. Number 8, promote the overall goal of having the U.S. withdraw completely from the United Nations. How many would like to do that? Good. Yeah. Good. Urge your congressman to co-sponsor H.R. 1146, which is called the American Sovereignty Restoration Act. another bill sponsored by Ron Paul. It's been in the Congress for many years. It just needs more co-sponsors. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't promote joining the John Birch Society. We have been here since 1958, tea partying since before tea partying was cool again. And we have a wealth of resources. Our research department up in Appleton, Wisconsin, where our headquarters is, has been, in the past, been consulted by the FBI looking for information on people that we had files on because of their Marxist ties. And we have a membership dues for $87 for individual or $99 for married couple, which includes 2 subscriptions. One to the New American Magazine, comes out twice a month, excellent review of the news and current events and perspective, and even articles on history, book reviews, movie reviews as well. There's a section in there called Exercising the Right that gives 2 or 3 stories that you don't hear in the mainstream news about how guns were used in the prevention of a crime. And then there's another section in the magazine called The Goodness of America, which are like Good Samaritan stories that you also don't hear much about on the news. So you get the New American Magazine and our monthly bulletin to all the members and chapters. And in the monthly bulletin, it contains our concerted action agenda for members and chapters to work on simultaneously for greater influence. I've got, for those that are interested, some blank membership applications on the back table there. Or you can also join online at jbs.org. These are the cities that have removed themselves from ICLEI. And that is just the first step. Once a city has removed itself from ICLEI, it then needs to go to their comprehensive plan, development plan, done by their city commissioners and so forth, and remove sustainable development regulations and policies out of it so that we can get back to a regular America where we're not pouncing on people's private property rights. So we are making progress as long as the citizens are informed. An informed electorate is what will get this country turned back around. We wouldn't be where we are if citizens knew the proper role of government and the proper limits of the Constitution to our government. So an informed electorate is what is key. So organization is the key. The John Birch Society chapters, there's a national network of those around, and it only takes about 8 people to make a chapter. A chapter leader, an assistant chapter leader, and a secretary-treasurer. And then from there, they can take that monthly bulletin and take action. They meet at least once a month for planning activities for the rest of the month. And with that greater exertion of influence all at one time from around the country, we can get more done. We just need more rowers at the oar, not just passengers in the boat. So we hope you'll agree and partake in our Choose Freedom Stop Agenda campaign, Agenda 21 campaign. We do have some inexpensive campaign tools that you can take a look at. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about that, but I wanted to mention right here in Tennessee, as a last note, State Senator Rick Womack, House Representative Womack, Floyd, and Joe Carr have sponsored a bill, and you might want to write this down. This is a bill that your state representative should co-sponsor. It's HB 3571. And the companion bill in the Senate is SB 3407. State Senator May Beavers is the sponsor of that bill. What this does, it prohibits Tennessee and all political subdivisions of it from adopting or implementing the United Nations Rio Declaration on Environment and Development, and the Statement of Principles for Sustainable Development, known as Agenda 21. So it's a bill in Tennessee to prevent the implementation of sustainable development plans. That's those two bills. Then there's another bill, HB 3572, by Mr. Womack, Mr. Floyd, and the companion bill in the Senate, 3408, SB 3408, again by May Beavers. And this bill, it says real property. As introduced, it defines private property rights to clarify meaning of unwarranted government interference with such rights. And then lastly, one more bill, HB 3573 by Rick Womack again, and Mr. Floyd, and again in the Senate, version SB 3409 by May Beavers, talks about eminent domain. It restricts counties, municipalities, and other legally recognized forms of government from exercising eminent domain power beyond the jurisdictional boundaries of each entity. So these are bills that would be helpful, very helpful in the Tennessee legislature. And on the back table, I've got a few other items to mention. One is called the Freedom Index. Twice a year, the John Birch Society publishes the Freedom Index, which is a scorecard of congressmen and senators on how they voted on 10 different bills throughout the session. And these are free back there on the table for you. See how yours scored. And we give them a plus if they voted constitutionally, and a minus